Welcome to the JB Show live on RBN. It is so good to see you all here today. So good to see everybody in the chat. Happy Sunday. Today is Sunday, January 16th, 2022. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. I'd like to give a warm welcome to all of you and remind you that the JB Show streams every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can catch me on the RBN Roundtable on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also host my own channel called the JB Font Channel during the weeks at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please make sure to click that thumbs up and do not forget to smush down that subscribe button and click the bell to be reminded that we are going live because we all know that the algorithm just don't like us.
I don't.
But but you know who likes us? Shareef likes us, and that's who's in the house today. Up in the building, Shareef Shrug, homie of homies, one of my favorite activists that is gracing us today. My brother, you decided to wear number one, my favorite color orange, number two, the color of the JB show purple. My brother, you went into my brain and you were just like, yo, I'm going on this show. I gotta represent his colors. Let's do this thing. And I was just like, my brother, yo, that's what's up. So good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Oh man, it's been a hell of a year. It's already starting. It's already starting off good. I'm really happy about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, it's good. It's good.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
yo, you had a busy weekend, bro. Like, what's going
Yes,
on?
yes. So yesterday is Martin Luther King's birthday, and this whole
Hmm.
pretty much like from Friday going up until Monday. There's gonna be so many like MLK rallies and events. So I
Yeah.
felt like so I felt like it had to like I had to do something to show some support for the legacy of Martin Luther King.
Hmm.
I actually PNXP actually had reached out to me last month and they wanted to do something and it kind of didn't work out, so it was asking me to because I was going to organize with them, and I was like, well, we got to do something, we cannot not do anything. So I was figuring out what to do, and I don't know if you knew about the fact that in Brooklyn, Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center is shutting down, and activists already throughout of all during the pandemic was trying to fight to actually get it to not close down, and they lost that battle. Unfortunately, that they're going to put condos and like what they always do in New York. Unfortunately, which is awful and gross to hear about this.
Hmm.
They was giving me more further information about the snowball effect of other hospitals being closed down during the pandemic. So I was
Mm.
like, well, I need to address that. I need to have an action in regards to that. And I felt like MLK Day and talking about hospital closures was probably like the perfect marriage to kind of bring together, because Dr.
Hmm.
King did say the biggest injustice in this country is our healthcare system, what we do to what we do in health,
Hmm.
and something that most people don't really kind of talk about when it comes to Martin Luther King. We usually hear discussions more about how he felt in the civil rights struggle. We never talked about social inequities. We never really get in the
Yeah.
nitty gritty about how he kind of felt about that. So that's why I felt like empowered to talk about that, because we have enough people who's going to have rallies in regards to his civil rights movement and what that is important. I
Hmm.
just felt like I'm going to celebrate it from my perspective instead of having a more of for lack of a better word, generic kind of like, okay, I'm celebrating Dr. King and civil rights and so forth and so on. Because even when I was talking to my son, and I mentioned this yesterday in Twitter space on Twitter, because I was hosting a space,
Hmm.
because all the schools, obviously do it. We all did it when we was kids too. They always do a project or something about Dr. King during around this time, and I was sharing with my son, because I know he did it for his school, why I felt Dr. King was really important.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing for me, other than obviously the civil rights struggle, was talking when he actually addressed capitalism. That was something that I felt that that a
Hmm.
lot of the leaders back then caught the vision. They removed the idea of just it being about race. You can't separate race and class. They go
Yeah.
hand in hand. And some of us learned that early on, and some of us don't, and some of us never. Some of us never learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah,
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why we consider a lot of what's being done in the the revering of Dr. King as a bit of a whitewash, because a lot of
Yes.
times what they'll do is they'll talk about the racial aspect and they'll talk about the social aspect, but they never talk about when it comes to the concrete uh, economic aspects that he was also talking about. And I think that's done on purpose.
Right.
Um, for some, they unknowingly do it. Some entities do knowingly do it because they were
Right.
around back then, but they never truly get to the crux of what he was talking about when he talks about the social, the economic inequities that also contribute to the social inequities in our
Right.
society.
Right. And not to be a conspiracy theorist, and it's probably not a conspiracy. I actually think that's probably why he got killed. Because if you think about it,
Yeah.
right, just look at we can talk about Dr. King, we can talk about Martin, we can talk about Malcolm X, we can talk about Marcus Garvey, we can talk about so many different leaders. Once they start dipping into capitalism, once they start
Mhm.
dipping into industry, you don't hear them
Mm.
anymore. They die. Right. If you just leave
Mm.
about race and say, hey, I want black people to be able to have this. Okay, no problem. Sure. Because we do
Mhm.
that now. Black Lives Matter. You see Amazon putting up, so much identity politics all over their business. Okay, great. We'll do that. Sure, black people, not a problem.
Yeah.
Once you start attacking capital and saying that, and try to bring down the system, right? We see that now,
Yep. Keep going.
right?
Hmm. Keep going. Keep going.
we don't
Rick.
we don't hear about you anymore. You kind of
Yep.
disappear. You just kind of let's give it this person,
Yeah.
right?
See, and here's the thing. I love what Danny here says. Danny said Dr. Cornell West calls the calls it the Santa classification of MLK.
Sounds about right. Love it. No, sounds about right. Seriously,
And that's right,
that is
because
very
the
right.
thing is, everybody needs to remember back when around the time when he died, they did a poll. He had a 75% disapproval rating across the United States.
Wow.
They hated Martin Luther
Right.
King Jr.
Right.
And a lot of those people are still alive today, and some of them are in government.
Right. Right.
And they'll concede to, oh yeah, with the racial aspect, yeah, let's give him a holiday, and let's talk about his legacy, about bringing races together. But once you start talking about his critique of capitalism and his
Right.
critique of how working and black people are being treated in the United States on a level of economics,
Right.
then that's when they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And they'll
Right.
repeat everything he said regarding the racial aspect, but when it comes to actually talking about capital and even talking about a basic income for everyone, or talking about how about how workers are being treated and how they're being paid within this country, they don't want to talk about that. They
Right.
always want to bring up the I Dream the I Dream I the I Have a Dream speech. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. They always want to bring up that speech, but they don't want to bring up the Two America speech. They
Right.
never want to bring up that. Or
Never.
they'll quote some parts of the letter from the Birmingham jail, but they won't quote other parts of the letter from the Birmingham jail. And
No.
even Hillary Clinton, she quoted it, but for some
Right.
reason she had no idea that he was talking about people like her.
Right.
So it's just wild how they just whitewash
All
everything
this,
about him.
everything he, it's because now we have a holiday for him, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of whitewashing, or as Cornel West just as someone just put in the chat, how they as the Santa Claus effect of Dr. King,
Yeah.
is that reason, right?
Mhm.
We want to give like this very imaginary kind of like childlike sense of Dr. King's struggle for not just for us but for the country itself,
Mhm.
and talking about capital as a whole. There's a quote that I have here. He says, "Call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all God's children." That's actually a quote from Dr. King, because
Yeah.
he actually recognized the actual the ecstemic system itself is the problem. And again, this is why I've said, call me a conspiracy theory, but when you start going down that road and you start talking about, not just race, you're talking about the whole system itself, they got to get rid of you.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to make that point at the rally, because the hospital closures in this country, it is capital based. Like the Kingsburg Hospital closing, it's because of funding. The one in the Bronx, and it was in the news, it's because of funding. And it's egregious that they're having a discussion out in the open. They're not even hiding anymore about why they're closing down a hospital during a pandemic. That's crazy to me. That people
crazy.
actually have they have the balls to even say it publicly. They're not even hiding it, and like there's no outcry about it either. Like I don't understand like where we are as a society, where we're saying that we're okay with that. Where is the boots on the ground? Let's get the pitchforks ready because you're destroying our community. Because if a community won't have a hospital, you're literally saying that the community is not going to be emboldened, not going to be empowered. Because that's where your power is, right? The fact you actually have your health.
Yeah. Where is the outrage?
Yeah.
It's like you're literally taking a hospital away from a disenfranchised community.
Right.
Is anybody It's like, is anybody listening?
Right.
Like, why are you guys not in the streets right now about this?
It's not even just New York either, too. Like, there's an article I posted on Twitter, and anyone in the chat is on Twitter, please DM me. I'll definitely share with you. There's other hospitals that closed during the pandemic, not just in New York. Outside of it's an extended problem across the board.
Yeah.
This is, and I was talking to Misty. She was saying, Shareef, this has been a problem for years.
Yes.
This has been a problem for years. And I said, obviously, we all know this. Us on the left, we know this, that this is not just a COVID issue, because, they always want to maneuver it as a, COVID is the reason why this is destroying, and this is why this is destroying, and this is leaving, and that's leaving. It's not COVID, it's capitalism.
Yeah.
Call it what it is. It's just capitalism. It's it's if we didn't have this problem prior to COVID, this wouldn't have been a conversation. We would have a system in place to actually protect our hospitals instead of destroying our hospitals.
I love when people talk about, it's because of COVID. Then why in the world did the amount of beds that we have in the United States started shrinking way before COVID ever happened? Why?
Exactly.
And why are the hospital beds shrinking as our population is rising? What is the reason for that?
Right.
And
absolutely.
So, as somebody who does suffer from a chronic illness, this is scary for me, because that means if something happens to me, then guess what? I may not have an opportunity to get to a hospital. Number one, because so many people are infected because of the pandemic, because our government is wholly inadequate at doing anything for our people.
Right.
Then you have an influx of people taking up those beds, and then somebody like me that may not have that same virus is suffering from something else related to my condition.
Right.
Then I can't really get seen in time, because all the beds are taken up, because they decided to shrink the beds because they wanted to increase the profitability of the hospitals, because they're ran by private corporations.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the problem. I actually raised this question too at the rally for the folks that were there. Like, we don't see this in Tribeca. We don't see this on the Upper West Side. We don't see this on the Upper East Side. We don't see this in Midtown. We don't see this on Wall Street.
Of course you don't.
If those hospitals in those communities also got shut down, you can have an argument and say that, COVID is destroying hospitals everywhere. It seems every time there's social unrest, it's always in our neighborhood. Always very targeted in our community. It just seems wild. I don't know.
Really?
Riddle me this. Right.
What could it be? I don't know. It's always in disenfranchised neighborhoods.
Yes,
It's like, it just happens to be with the poor whites and the poor blacks and the poor Latinos and the poor Asians and the poor indigenous people. And we just can't figure it out. Maybe you guys just don't know how to run a hospital over there. I don't know.
Right.
It's like, really, please, come on.
Right, like
You know.
it's baffling to me. It's so funny, and the mental gymnastics, and
Yeah.
not poo pooing on like one of the not poo pooing on a comrade, but I had mentioned earlier about this action to one of fellow comrade, and they was like, well, Shareef, there's some hospitals reopening. I was like, but that's not the point though.
They
I
shouldn't have closed in the first
the
place.
first time, right? Like I hear you, I understand, but my point is not about the reopening, and I do think that's something to celebrate. I'm happy that
Yeah.
someone up there decided to say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't close so many hospitals. But the point is that the inequity is so disparately like not even like on the same level of like fixing the issue. It's a growing problem. Perfect example. This is a recent study too. 18% of Americans traveled 10 miles to the closest hospital.
Oh.
10 miles. And you think to yourself, 18%, that's not a big number. All right. But if you do the math, right, we have about 330 million people that live in America. So that means we do the math, that means 60 million people, 60, not six, 60 million people travel about 10 miles to the closest hospital. Not clinic, not a specialist. We're just talking about an actual hospital, right? That's how many people have to travel that far. So the more hospitals you close, you're just making it 12 miles, 15 miles, 30 miles. Where's the consensus in saying that's a problem? That's an existential issue that we need to address in this country. And I think that when we live in a place like New York, where we have mass transit, we don't think that that's a big deal. So it's easy to kind of do that in New York because we do have hospitals in Queens, we have hospitals in Brooklyn, we have hospitals in Staten Island, we have hospitals in Manhattan, we have hospitals in the Bronx. We also have Long Island, we also have upstate New York. So we can get around here in New York. So we don't it kind of doesn't hit us the way it was hit in a rural area, but it still is a problem because let me tell you why. Because most people, if there's an emergency, if they're taking an ambulance, they have to worry about that cost. The ambulance is expensive. Not everyone get access to an accessoride. An accessoride is a service that we have in New York. I don't know if it's everywhere outside of New York, where if you have healthcare and if you have a certain disability, you have you can actually require to get that. That is not for everyone. They cut that service out for everybody. So it's not a community-based situation where anyone can just get an accessoride. So when you start thinking about how far you have to travel, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if you have an emergency, that may not be a good thing. Okay, great. You can jump in a car and travel 30 minutes, but do you have 30 minutes to travel? Like, what are you really losing? You got to think about what you're really losing when you get rid of a hospital. It's just so many dynamics. We're not even thinking about the people in the disability community that have to travel to the hospital. It's crazy. Again, it's like,
yeah.
It's like I can't even imagine like having a discussion with these people about this. It's crazy to me, like how they get to that math.
Okay, repeat this, bro. So, have you ever heard of the phrase "health is wealth"?
Absolutely,
Okay,
100%.
let's take this. Let's take this from an economics perspective. If health equals wealth, and the rich want to hoard all the wealth, need I say more?
Right,
So
right,
therefore, they deem people like us,
right.
people that look like us, and even a lot of you poor whites, they deem you unworthy of even having health
Yes,
because they feel that if you're lazy,
right,
then you can't afford it, then
right,
you don't deserve it.
right,
And that's what they think. And
right.
it's deeply sociopathic and murderous type of mentality that has plagued this nation. The biggest pandemic that we have in this nation is capitalism, not
Yep,
COVID. It's
yep,
capitalism. And the thing
yep.
is, people automatically simply think that you are unworthy because you cannot afford the health,
Right,
which means that you, you're nothing.
right.
And,
And
and,
we
and
and
yeah, go ahead.
no, JB. I want to hear this point.
No, and that's one of the reasons why, to me, honestly, I've moved beyond single payer healthcare. I'm like, you know what? That's not good enough. I say
Mm,
nationalize it all
mm,
of it, nationalize
mm,
it, make it
mm.
so that nobody is left out. Not even immigrants.
Right,
Because if you're an immigrant and you come to this country, I do not want you to get hit by a car and then you end up dying because you can't afford it. No, no, no,
right,
no. Everybody who comes into this country, who steps foot into the United States, if you get hurt, you're going to get help. Just like Homeboy said and John Q, sick help, sick help. There is no in between.
right.
Go ahead, please.
No, absolutely. And I'm happy you brought up John Q because that movie came out, it's a little ahead of his time because that movie
It is.
came out early
Yeah.
2000s. This is before like the big push
Hmm.
for the Medicare for All movement. I mean, Medicare for All has always been on the docket um, for years now, even before that movie. But before it became into the consciousness, that movie came out earlier. And for some of us who are on the left already, we kind of knew that already. That's a big movie for us to really kind of understand the nuance of like how bad the system really is. Because I think before then, that wasn't something that we kind of really talked about. And we have to realize that if you don't know now by now that
Hmm.
the healthcare industry is tied to status, it is tied to wealth. Because
It is.
the reason why they're removing these hospitals is because the hospital is not making enough money. I think the one in the Bronx was saying that they're cutting at a loss of $12 million a year, and this is why they're cutting down at a hospital because people just can't afford to
Hmm.
go to that hospital because the medical bills are absurd, which makes sense, right? And it does need to be nationalized. We need to have a situation where every single American, no matter what status you are, no matter what your economic situation is, you walk into the emergency room, you would do not even for a checkup should be a
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy you're showing this up right now because people definitely need to see that.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie.
Yeah,
If you have not watched it, or if you've been a long time since you watched John Q, it's starring Denzel Washington. It's actually a really good movie where it actually talks about the disparities within the healthcare system. And I
right.
want to I want to point out another point. And you were talking about hospital closures and people getting to the hospital. A huge majority of people who actually go to the hospital, especially to the emergency room, are people who have been suffering from things that should have been treated with preventative care in the first place.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, 100%,
So so if
100%.
people truly had health care, not access to health care, but actually had health care
Right.
and community clinics with primary care physicians closer to them, then they wouldn't even need to go to the hospital as often. So
Yep.
therefore, there will be less beds taken up in the first place.
Yep. 100%.
So, uh, for instance, there was once a young man named James, and this young man had health insurance. And this young man could not even afford to go to the hospital with his health insurance because the copays and premiums were too high. And so, did he go to the hospital? I'm sorry, did he go to the clinic? Did he have a primary care physician? No. And so at the tender age of 23, he started experiencing symptoms of kidney failure. And so he finally had to go to the hospital and he was diagnosed with chronic kidney failure and had to go on dialysis. So maybe, just maybe, if we had a universal healthcare system, that same young man probably he may have still ended up on dialysis, but he wouldn't have spent over 7 hours in an ER waiting in triage just to get seen to be told that he had to go on dialysis.
Right. And maybe you can go to work, you can do other things, even though you might be able, maybe even though you might have this chronic illness, but maybe you can actually be out in the public with other people because maybe they were able to treat it sooner and it wouldn't have been so bad.
Maybe, just maybe.
Just maybe.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if we had a truly nationalized healthcare system, then we wouldn't have to worry about big businesses like DaVita Dialysis and Fresenius, who make their money off of dialysis. And so there really isn't that big of a push to actually cure different diseases of chronic kidney failure. like end-stage renal disease, which I happen to have. Oh, but we don't want to talk about that.
Right.
You know,
Well,
or maybe different diseases like cancer. I mean, there's a rumor that lung cancer is being there's a vaccine for lung cancer in Cuba, but God forbid we actually have different vaccines for cancer in the United States because I mean they make a lot of money off of chemo and all the other stuff.
James, why don't you just work harder, travel to Cuba?
Listen, James, just go to your local Williams Sonoma, and you can find yourself, a proper dialysis machine, and then you're good to go. Look, are you really saying that, you just don't have the means to do it? Why are you being such a victim? Stop being a
Right,
victim, James.
right, right. Spend the money and just go to Cuba and go there.
Yeah, just spend the money.
Right, right,
You got it.
right.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just it kills me that people have this kind of this idea that it's your fault if you can't afford your health care, you did it.
Yeah.
And we have this system. We don't have a system that's designed based on helping people. It's about helping ourselves.
Yeah.
It's very predatory. It's me. It's all the self. And then the only time we care about others is when it benefits us. That's the kind of country we have. We don't have a country that is worrying about how this is ultimately going to affect the rest of the community, because we do have a class divide. We need to just call it what it is. It's like we don't live in a country where the rich and the poor work together. We should just realize that by now. We don't understand that the system is designed so that those who have wealth and those who are in a position of power, they're good, and you're not. And that's it. And you just have to realize that. And we just have to keep punching up and letting the establishment know we need to change that system. We can't rely on this system anymore, because again, reason why this is important at the end of the day, like, we're the working class. We fuel this industry. Without us, you don't have anything. You just don't. And people we need to get away from being afraid to not only say that, but we also need to use the power we actually do have. We do need to see more shutdowns. We need to see more people doing these marches and rallies and punching up and actually just telling to the system that you need to take care of us. And if you don't, you're going to keep having this. We don't have enough strikes in this country. We just don't. We don't have enough. We don't have enough. We need to have more. We really do. We really do. Because then the message will be clear that you're going to stop doing this. We need a 30-day, like, massive, like, I'm shutting shit down. No one goes to work. No one supports these certain business. Pick an industry and shut it down. Like, we target Amazon. Like, I would contact Chris Smalls and say, we're with you. Let's get healthcare. Let's shut down Amazon for 30 days. No one goes to work. No one buys an Amazon package. No one does any delivery. None of that. And then they'll have them come to the table. We need to do some type of strategic strategy, because, and the reason why you want to do that, and the reason why I think that's important, is because people in the ruling class, they all talk together. They just do, right? Jeff Bezos and these people can easily get a meeting with people in Congress before I can, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Easily. And say, okay, my workers won't go back to work until they get healthcare. What can we do? You want to have that kind of conversation. You want them to do that kind of work. And we don't have people doing that, because again, we're so afraid of how we're gonna be judged and how we're gonna be looked at by having a shutdown, versus you don't have anything else left to lose. The country's burning already. To go on to that point, my next action I'm going to do is targeting Bernie Sanders. So I've already started. I messaged his office in Vermont, and I literally just came out and asked him. I was like, Bernie, what are we doing? We have in New York. Can't speak for any other state. In New York, our surges here for Omicron is huge.
Yeah,
we're not having a shutdown though, but it's huge, because I guess we feel like most people are vaccinated. People can just go get the test and stuff like that. We're fine, which we're not. And so I'm urging everyone to do the same. Contact Bernie, and the reason why I'm picking on Bernie is because he's the most popular senator. He's introduced Medicare for all into the consciousness, right? He's the reason why I became an activist. When Bernie Sanders said now wasn't the time for Medicare for all, it energizes me to say, what? You ran on this. This has been your crowning issue for decades, and now we have COVID. You abandoned it. Stop talking about masks. Stop talking about the Democrats. Start talking about Medicare for all. We want a grassroots movement for Medicare for all again, and we want you to get out in the street. We want other people to get out in the street. And so I already messaged his office right in Vermont. I'm going to message his office in DC. I'm going to do some phone calls, and if I don't hear anything from his office by February 1st, on Valentine's Day, I'm visiting his house, and I'm knocking on his door, and it says, Bernie, what's up? Where's Medicare for all? Why are we not talking about it again?
Yeah.
We're in a pandemic, and nobody from the Democratic Party is talking about Medicare for all anymore. Nobody. We don't have no allies. We have no heroes. This is why I don't believe in electoral solutions, because this is my point right here. For people who do believe in electoral politics, if you do, please contact Bernie. You believe in the Democrats, you believe in electoral solutions, you don't feel comfortable contacting Bernie, contact your representative in your district, in your neighborhood. Go to them and ask them, when can we have a discussion about Medicare for all? Because again, we're closing hospitals, and they're having discussions about that, but they're not having discussions about Medicare for all.
Yeah.
So that has to be the move. That we don't have any other options. And so that's one action I'm doing next month. The other action I'm doing next month, I'm doing a Black History action in Oakland. I'm going to do a rally there with the Red Berets. And because I want to further the conversation about the inequities in our community. So the MLK rally yesterday was just a taste. I actually want to go further with this because we need to hear more stories, not just generalizing it for Medicare for all, which you all know, but I do want to hear more from my own people, what it is that how we need to be in community with each other. And we should all kind of do this anyway. We shouldn't just use Black History Month as a way to be in community with other Black people who talk about the inequities in our community. We should also do this for all communities, but I am taking this time to celebrate Black History Month in my own way as a healthcare activist to punch up at the system, because I do know, I live here, I do know what we go through. So I do want to share that. So I do want to be we want to be in community with other people outside of New York State. I want to know what they're going through, and I want to see how we can actually bridge. Because my whole focus now this year in 2022 as an activist is that I'm trying to bridge more across state lines. I want to reach out to people in California. I want to reach out to people in Florida. I want to reach out to people in Jersey, everywhere. If you're a healthcare activist, if you're an activist in general, I want to be community with you, because we're out of time. That's why this sense of urgency that I have about traveling is because the country is crumbling and we see it before our eyes. And so I'm trying to make this year about me traveling places, meeting people, being in community with people. I want to get this ground game going for Medicare for all, because people are dying and I don't see anyone else helping. And I feel like if I get out there and start, plugging at the system, maybe we can get something done,
Yeah. You know what? There's a fatigue that's happening
Right.
among a lot of us. And the thing is that there are so many people that are being purposefully distracted by this system that focuses on overproduction. Let me explain. Years ago, if you were to do something like this, let's say in the 70s, there will be a lot of people that would answer your call to action and be out there as soon as you get out there. But because so many of us have to work more to just survive, it puts so many more people at a disadvantage where they're like, I can't even afford to stop to do this action that I really want to do.
Yes.
And this is disheartening, because this is one of the the benefits to the oppressor class that they like is that you don't have time to take the action against them.
Right.
They keep you busy.
Right.
So if anybody is willing to go out and do this type of action, if people who do have a little extra can give mutual aid to the people who want to do some action, that may be a way you can contribute. Maybe you aren't able to go out there, but can you help somebody else go out there? And so
100%.
that's the kind of idea that I want to convey. If you're unable to, but you want to help somebody else get out there, even if it's by a very small means, help somebody else get out there.
Honestly, James, what you're bringing up is very true. I mentioned this before. I was on the Punched Up podcast. I was mentioning the fact that one of the biggest reasons why people don't get involved is not because they don't care. I do want people to realize that some people don't care. I'm going to be very clear. People really don't. Some people really don't care. They feel like, well, I got my money, I got my healthcare, not my problem, right?
Yeah.
But there are other people out there who do really care. They do care about these issues. The reason why they're not out there is because if they miss one day of work, they're getting fired. They're losing their job. That's the reality. I know a lot of people in that situation. They're gonna lose their job. There's no idea of like I'm gonna take off work today to go to a rally. So reality is some people can do that. Like myself, I can take off from work. I'm not worried about losing my job. But because my job is like, well, if you take off from work, that's your dime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how my job looks at it. But other people, they don't have the luxury of saying, well, I'm going to take off work today. And they're going to lose their job if they even make that inclination to do that. So I definitely understand that. But what people can do is what you're saying is like donate money to causes. You don't have to donate the money just to me, but you can donate to other things out there. And if that's the only way how you can contribute, do that. But also, too, you can call your congressperson. You can make a phone call. You can email them. You can go to their office if you live close to someone's office. You can write letters. I appreciate that. I am going to start a letter campaign for Bernie. I do want people to write letters to him, go to his website, and fill out the form that's on the website to request a scheduled meeting with him. Call him, because I'm not going to be rude. I just simply wanted to know, like, where's this ground game? Where's this grassroots movement for healthcare now? Because now more than ever, we definitely need one. And I know someone reached out to me, said that don't you need to live in Vermont? Don't you need to live in his district to have a meeting with him? No, I had a meeting. Full disclosure, I had a meeting recently with Congresswoman Katie Porter to talk about her bill. I met with a lot of healthcare activists. Who are in her district, yes, but also to other around the country. We had a meeting about this to talk about her bill. So I am going to be talking to her staffers in her office about having an action for her bill. Full disclosure, I do think her bill, it doesn't go further enough. I just don't think that at all. But I'm doing it anyway, not because of to get cozy up with politicians. I don't care about that. I'm doing it because we need more support in the healthcare fight. We need to energize the base, right? As they always say all the time. I want to get other people involved in healthcare because no one else who is a sitting elected official gives a shit. I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings. I know I get a lot of shit when I say that, but it's true. Because a lot of people feel like, oh, they're doing enough. I don't see it. If you have some strategy that I'm not aware of, I want to be clued in on that. I'd like to know, like, what strategy, what are you doing? Because I have members of my community who are literally suffering. This is not a joke. I'm not saying it. I think a lot of times people think that we're in our own echo chamber. We're just repeating talking points. I'm actually out there. People will actually tell you about their condition. If you just go out there in your neighborhood and just ask people about what they're going through. I know, even at the rally, I was just talking to people in the neighborhood. They didn't know. And they was like, this hospital's always overcrowded. It was like, why would they shut this down? Which is crazy to me. It's always crowded. It was like, for them to say they don't have money, what are they talking about? They don't understand it. And that's, well, it comes down to the fact that how much money? Because again, it's not really about the fact that, the hospital being overcrowded. It's about the fact that, well, how much money am I making from these people being in this hospital? If I'm not making a profit, why do I need to keep it open? So that's what it comes down to. And so when you think that, you don't understand that's how they think. You have to
Mhm.
know that it's a calculus. It has to make sense, has to make financial sense to them to keep this open. And
Mhm.
so we have to remove the monetary gain from the hospital system. We don't have that in this country. It's always about how much money am I making. Guaranteed, we wouldn't have a discussion about this hospital closing if this hospital was profitable. I promise you that they would keep this open. If there's a cash cow like that, like in other neighborhoods, because in Tribeca and these other neighborhoods where more well-to-do in New York, their hospitals, they don't never worry about their hospitals closing. Never happens.
Because hospitals make money when they do more elective surgeries.
Right, right,
So, a lot of poor people do not have the money to do elective surgeries. And so, therefore, yes, the hospital may be packed and it may be full all the time. It could even be a level one trauma center. But if they're not doing a lot of elective surgeries, then they're not making a huge amount of profit. And what hospitals do make a huge amount of profit? The ones who do elective surgeries, a lot of ones that operate within more wealthier neighborhoods. So that's one of the little secrets of how hospitals make money. And so if we were to let's just hypothetically say we just got single payer healthcare. Just hypothetically, we got single payer healthcare. Hospitals would then still be profitable. All hospitals would be profitable because then
right,
everybody will be able to get an elective surgery,
right,
you know? And so that's the least, right? What I
right,
want, what I want is fully nationalization. Would be even after you have that elective surgery, then you won't have to pay out the nose either for your crutches or your walker, or you won't have to pay out the nose for basically anything whatsoever because you'll basically get it damn near free, you
right.
know? And so because people just don't have it. And
No,
everybody deserves the platinum healthcare. I don't
right,
and this whole notion that, you know, you don't, you only deserve how much you produce. It's like no, because then that means some people are gonna die.
right. Well, I always bring this point up because I'm a server. I work at a high end movie theater in New York,
Hmm.
and so I always like I try to radicalize the staff there, and I always tell them that we do more work than the supervisor, the manager, the district manager, and all the other people going up the ladder. And I was like, for the idea that you think that this $1 billion movie theater, you don't have a say. Think about it. If we do not come into work, they don't make money. Full stop. Right. So at the end of the day, you have more say in this country about your health care than they do. Because again, you fuel this business. And the United States is a business. People need to get out of their heads that this is a country. This is a corporation. Okay. So because it's a corporation, you have to remember that we fuel this business, we fuel this empire. If we say tomorrow we're not going to work, that's a problem. Right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of dissent every time about strikes and about sit-ins and shutdowns and stuff like that. Why do you think that? Because at the end of the day, like if we actually was bold enough to say, fuck this shit, I'm not going to work for 30 days. I
Hmm.
promise you, they were like, what do you guys want?
Yep.
What do you want? They're gonna do that. The reason why they're not doing that now is because at the end of the day, not enough of us will do a shutdown. They know that. They know what they can get away with. Even at my job, they know what they can get away with. They know that most workers are just going to shut up and just take it
Hmm.
because you got bills, you got responsibilities, you got kids, you need to feed them. You don't get food stamps. They know that you're not getting other like social inequities. So they're like, okay, well, just deal with it. And so we have to get to a place where we do have some type of community outreach so
Yeah.
that we can do some type of shutdown. I mean, when you guys did the General Strike Summit, that was a powerful moment,
Yeah.
I think, in the movement. And I think we need to have more of those. We need to have more discussions about that. How can we kind of hack the system to get
Yeah.
more comrades to feel more comfortable about not even like having a general strike, just having a discussion about general strike? Because I'm pretty sure you guys realize that was an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people. A lot of people, it just rubbed people the wrong way. And because again,
You
they're still attached to this system because they feel the system works. They feel like, well, if you don't have, that's your fault. You didn't work hard enough. You don't know, you don't have connections, you don't know what you're doing. What they always have this, they always the tech power. We have in this country, we always protect power. It baffles me. You don't have power, but you're protecting those who do got power. And it's crazy to me that we do that.
Yeah. I'm gonna quote. I'm gonna quote my sister Josana when she says, "Decolonize your mind." And when I say
Absolutely.
that, I'm not just talking about people who look like us. I'm talking about all you white people out there. I'm talking to you too.
Right.
Decolonize your brain. What do I mean by that? Right now, you are a slave on a plantation, and there are two, three, four masters and overseers on that plantation. There are 50 of us. 50 of us. We have access to get to the guns. We have access to get to the machetes. We have access to get to the pitchforks. And we can lock them away. And what happens if we stand up to the overseers and to the masters? The thing is that they don't want you to know that you have that power. That's
Right.
what they don't. That they know you have the power. They just want to make you think that you don't. It's just like when you take an elephant when it's a baby and you put a chain around its leg, and that chain around its leg and it's chained to the ground and it can't move. And you do that for a while. And then when the elephant is fully grown, you can take that chain and chain it around a plastic chair, a fully grown elephant, and that elephant won't move. Why?
Right.
Because it thinks that it has no power.
Right.
Even though all they got to do is move its like 1 inch and boom, it's done. But
Right.
the thing is that they're doing the exact same thing with us.
Right.
This is a brainwashing of the masses. The
Yep.
manufactured consent of the masses to make it seem like we don't have power when really we have the power to ruin them. We can end them with just doing this. I will not work in a call center and I will not pick up that phone. I'm a server in a restaurant and I will not pick up that plate. I work in a hotel and I will not pick up them sheets. And I work in a fast food restaurant and I will not pick up that burger bun.
Right.
I'm not going to take that meat out of the freezer. Hell no.
Right.
Until you give me what I deserve. And the thing is that that's one of the things I think I appreciate about people like you is that you're trying to let people know you have power. You just gotta use it. And I'm here to help you understand that you can use it, baby. And that's
Yep.
what it's all about. And that's one of the things I appreciate. And this is one of the reasons why I was so game to have you on. Because people like you and Rome and Afeni and Josana and so many people who go out there and the people from the Red Berets, they're always trying to let people know that you have the power. Look, you and I are around the same age.
Mm.
What did we used to watch when we were young? We used to watch Captain Planet and
The
the Planet
planet.
Eaters, right?
I knew he was gonna
The
mention
power is
that.
yours. Guess what? That was the realest shit that Captain Planet ever said. And guess what? It is true. The power is ours. And so this is one of the things that I honestly think that needs to be echoed as much as possible. And look, I don't care. Look, if you write and you post things on Substack, write about how people actually have power that they need to wield it. If you have a podcast or if you want to get into podcast space, then get into that space. Let people know how much they have power. If you are a worker and you're around your workmates and they start complaining about their jobs, let them know that they have power. People need to be reminded because we've been so brainwashed that we now need to reacclimate to ourselves to what our ancestors knew back then, especially in the 30s and 40s, and a lot of us in the 60s and 70s during the civil rights era,
Right.
is that we really do have the power.
Right.
And
I mean,
so,
that's what the Black Power movement was in this country.
yeah,
This
exactly.
whole, that's what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Power to the people, because we affect industry, and I think that's been lost. I think
Mm-hmm.
that this symbol has been sloganeering now. It doesn't really have the same effect anymore. Like when we do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? To us
Yeah.
who really know what that means, we
Yeah.
do it because we really want power to the people.
We do.
This actually has more meaning than just I'm with you, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually really means like we really want to punch up at the system. It's not like just I'm just putting my fist in the air. I
Mm-hmm.
really want to change the system. It's really radical. It's not just a slogan and I'm just like doing it to look cool. It's really means something, right?
Yeah.
So hand gestures, symbols and hand gestures and language, it all has power, it all has meaning. It's not just there to look cool. It is there to symbol other people who are in the know that we want this system to be changed, right? We don't want the same old. And I think that is going to take um more time than necessary. I always tell activists that I feel that this fight is going to take 10 years. And I say that to be realistic about it. Like, we're not going to
Mm-hmm.
get Medicare for all. We're not going to get a lot of these social safety nets right away. But if you are in it for the long haul and you actually do care about other comrades, you do care about these issues,
Yeah.
then you're going to be all right. But if you're someone that needs immediate gratification, being an activist may not be for you because, Rome wasn't built in a day. Revolutions don't happen overnight. It doesn't. And it does take these conversations. We do need to be in a space more and more. So when you just said about the Substack and being on podcasts, we do need to lift more voices. We do need more people to be in community with each other. And again, like I said, you start where you are. Like, if you can't risk your job or take off from work to be at a protest, to be at a rally, that is fine. I don't want people to feel like they can't be involved, they can't be engaged. They
Oh.
can. There are 1,000 other ways that comrades can be helpful. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we misunderstand what
Mm-hmm.
being an activist means.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. I think that we think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
being an activist means that, I just go to an event and then I go back home. That's not what that means, right? So being an activist, it really does means that you want to activate the community, right?
Yeah.
So how you do that, right? So you want to give them information, you want to embolden them to make a change. That's what activism is all about. We don't want things to stay the same. We want to energize and push our comrades to do better, not just for ourselves, but for our community. So
Mm-hmm.
however you do that, you
Yeah.
are an activist,
Yeah.
right? If I'm informing you and I'm helping you and I'm empowering you wherever I am, whether I'm at work or if I'm out in the street, wherever it is, you are
Mm-hmm.
an activist because you are helping the community. So you can do anything to be engaged. You don't have to feel powerless because you have to be home or you
Mm-hmm.
can't take off from work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a suggestion. I know a lot of you guys on social media. Do you have a friend or somebody on social media that you know that's complaining about their job on a post?
Right.
Could you tell them and remind them how much power they have just in a
Right.
comment or
Right.
in a tweet?
Right.
Maybe, just maybe, you're emboldening them to wield that power.
Right.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I actually have so you don't know this, but so I had two or three managers at my job. Quaker knows this, had asked me to be a supervisor, and I
Oh,
have I have zero interest of being a supervisor, right? I'm the worst person to ask because I'm talking about shutting down the system. I'm not trying to help the system, right? But
mhm,
I'm a good worker, so I understand. And I even told them that too. I told my manager Carlos a while ago that I was like, I'm the worst person, right? You do know I'm an activist, right? Like, I'm punching up at the system all the time when I take off from work. I was like,
mhm,
why do you guys
mhm.
want me? And so they was engaging with me in that conversation, and then some other coworkers heard that I want they was asking me. So I literally told them that I don't want to do that. They're like, no, Shareef, you should do it. We need you. Look, we need you. You should definitely do it. We need you. We need you to do it because you would actually help us get it. And I said, well, I actually personally feel powerless. I don't feel that even me as a supervisor, they're going to listen. Yeah, I have a little bit more power, but at the same time, they don't care because the other managers, some of the other managers as well as we had come through our job, they also wanted to do that too, and they didn't. And some of them actually left because of it. They actually quit because it was like, this is bullshit. I'm leaving. So we do have people in some positions do leave because they're by themselves. And it was like, well, fuck this, right? And so that discussion was still on the table. And so now they're asking some of the coworkers saying that we need to talk about unionizing. We need to talk about doing something. They said, we're behind you, sir, if you actually do that. I said, I have no problem. I said, I don't know anything about unions. I don't know how to start that. But I did have some conversations with some of the managers about things that I'm looking for at the job. And I'm going to bring that up again. And if it's not on the table, I will try to see if I can do some type of form of like unionization at the workplace because it's definitely needed. And I do know that other workers outside of my location
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to do that. So I definitely want to start talking to them about how do we strategize that. And if that doesn't work, I am gonna pretty much probably leave
Yeah.
because I just want to leave the I want to leave the health I want to leave the hospitality industry anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I'm still here, I do want to make the best of it. And these kind of discussions at the workplace does need to happen because it does start. And I'm gonna circle it back to healthcare right now. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things at my job they do, instead of offering you a raise, they offer you healthcare. And I always talk about this a lot. And my job is pretty much a perfect example of why we need to change the system. Instead of offering people better ways, they offer you healthcare. And so if you get the healthcare through my job, you leave, like most jobs, you don't get healthcare anymore. You're screwed, right? And I know managers at my job who became managers to
Mm-hmm.
actually keep their healthcare
Mm-hmm.
and actually to get healthcare because my job works like this. You have to accumulate a certain amount of hours and you have to be full time to actually get healthcare. So if you're a part-time worker, you don't work that many days, you don't work many hours, they don't give you healthcare. So you don't get it. So we
Mm-hmm.
used to make $10 an hour. Now we make $12 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm trying to push, see if we get 15 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I want to also work on doing autograt. Autogratuity, if anyone don't know what that means, is that when you buy food at the restaurant, they put a tip amount on there already. And
Mm-hmm.
so I used to work at a hotel that when you got in-room dining, the tip was already included already because you're paying for the service for the food to be delivered to your room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work at a bougie movie theater where you don't have to get up. They bring the food, the drinks, and everything to you. Right? It's not like
Mm-hmm.
going to AMC or Regal. This is like
Mm-hmm.
you press a button, someone comes to your table, take your order, bring back what you just wanted to order. And we don't have a tip system there where they automatically do that. And so we're talking about that now. So we're negotiating. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm bringing this point up because this took years in the making for this to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
where the staff members were very emboldened, very pissed off. Some left, some sticked around, and then we're still pushing. So it does take a long time, and so these things don't happen overnight. But if you do care about the job you do have,
Mm-hmm.
and you do care about some of these safety nets, you do have to fight for them. You're not going to get them by just
Mm-hmm.
asking for them. You do got to constantly do a lot of pushing and prodding at the establishment and say, listen, we're not going to take this. I mean, we're not there yet with the pitchforks at my job.
Mm-hmm.
I would love that to be the case,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of the outside inside game of like what I'm doing at work versus what I'm doing in healthcare, I am trying to marry that. I'm trying to marry the kind of same ideology where we do need to get in the street, we do need to get emboldened, and that's really the kind of discussion we need to be having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just, here's another idea. If you go someplace regularly, like a grocery store or different shop or whatever, and, you know, you encounter a worker and they start talking to you about either the place or they work or what have you, try to slip in some talk about unionizing there. And especially in places like I live in Florida, which is basically a right to fire state. I talk to like my drivers who take me to and from dialysis. I'll talk to them about being in a union, and
Mhm.
they'll tell me, "Oh, we're already in a union, but they're just not doing that much," and blah blah blah. And I'll say, "Well, you can still get your fellow workers together,
Right,
but I say I say that to basically try to spread the message as much as possible.
right,
Um, even just on your just on an offhand basis, and not to be like pushy about it, But like if
Right.
they mention it, then you somehow mention it so that it plants a seed in their mind.
No, 100%, 100%. And I think that so all these social inequities need to have be discussed. I think that we
Hmm.
need to remove the conversation that
Hmm.
we're not important enough to ask for that. You're valuable. You're important,
Hmm.
regardless of the fact, what you feel at work.
Yeah.
Again, I make this point very clear that if
Hmm.
you're not doing that job, they're going to get someone else to do that job. So that means that that job is valuable to the infrastructure to why that industry is making X amount of dollars. And that's something I tell the staff members all the time. I pick it's not a small operation. We're $1 billion empire. $1 billion
Wow.
would it be? So
Wow.
the fact you think that your job is insignificant, it's baffling to me because again, those doors don't get open unless you come to work. They just don't. They really don't. Like my job specifically, I can speak for my job. If we don't come to work, they have to shut down. They just have to. We just have to. We don't. We the nuance of the workload there needs to be handled perfectly for us to be an industry. Like places like Amazon too. Like this is why like they're that's why this the success of that of their movement is happening because if enough of those workers don't come to work, it just is what it is. They're gonna have to shut that location down. They just have to. So even if some of the workers do come to work, right, they don't have enough hands to do everything. They just don't. So even if you have to do some of these people
Yeah.
who are not on board and say, hey, I'm not striking, because you do happen to have those people like that.
Hmm.
If you get enough of people who say, I'm sitting home, they're going to shut that store down. Like we've
Yeah.
seen posts like that on Twitter where the management will put like, oh, this McDonald's shut down, this Wendy's shut down, this Burger King shut down because enough staff didn't come into work. So
Hmm.
even if you feel like, oh, we can't get everyone, you don't need everybody. Like
Hmm.
just know like how many people it needs to not show up to work for them to
Hmm.
say, I got to close the store
Yep.
because there is a number, and I know
Hmm.
the number at my job. There is a number, and if those people don't come to work, it's over. They have to close the restaurant because they don't have enough people. Guests are going to be complaining. They can't afford that many comps. They can't afford to lose that kind of money. They have to. They just have to.
Hi, viewer watching right now. I hope you're listening to exactly what he said. Find out your number. If you work in a fast food restaurant, how many people does it take to actually run that restaurant without shit hitting the fan? Uh, I used to work in a furniture store. If the customer service reps did not come in, oh shit, because those phones have to be answered, and all these different things have to be processed, right? If you are working at a delivery service like Amazon, are you a driver? So here's the thing, you realize where the power is, and you get yourself a team of people that say, look, we won't do this unless you guys do that for us. Because guess what? Are the managers going to be able to do everything? No. Is the district manager going to have to come in? He ain't going to come in, or
They're not
she ain't
coming
going to come
in.
in. They're
They're
not
not
coming
coming
in.
in. They're not coming
And
in.
guess what? Because there's only one of them. And they have
Right.
to manage a bunch of different stores or shops or whatever. So realize that the power is yours.
And also too, like talk to also too, and I'll give you a story too. Talk to also other locations and get them
Mm.
involved. Because here's why: because capitalism, they're very cunning, they're very slick.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I worked at the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
I worked for Amelia Inside Hotel years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and so majority of the kitchen staff did not come to work. Because
Ooh.
most of the kitchen staff didn't get a lunch break. They was working 14-hour days. They was too exhausted. One guy passed out on the job. Shit you
Oh,
not. Call the ambulance and stuff like that. There
that
was
happened
just
to
so much
me.
work going on. And so what they did was they contact the staff from the other location, brought them over, and it was like it never happened. Okay, great. You didn't come to work. And so a lot of times people do revolt
Mm-hmm.
and they do walk out. So that when I worked at that hotel, those kitchens that walked out, they did not come in to work that day. However, it didn't hurt business because it says they just called the other location. Can you guys come over? Yeah, okay. And then they came over. Okay, good
Yep.
deal. And so you do need to plan a little bit of this. So I'm not saying that it's all like, okay, you got your staff at your location and you guys are good. That's great. If you have a McDonald's or any other business that's close by, they may just call staff over to come to that location, and then it's like, okay, you're fired. And we'll just fire you because, okay, great, you don't come to work, that's fine. And now you don't have a job. And so you do got to plan a little bit of this because capitalism is cunning. And this is why corporations survive, because they do have the infrastructure, do have the money, they do have the resources. So you do have to kind of coordinate this. And if you do have a place where you do have multiple locations, especially close by, like a Starbucks, because Starbucks, they usually have like, within like 10 minutes of them, they only have, and especially in New York, they have so many of them close by. So someone want to do a Starbucks strike here in New York, would be very difficult. You have to kind of plan that really strategically.
Yeah. I think part of it has to be, if you do it, then do it with certain strategic members. Like, for instance, if you have, like, if you know somebody who drives a truck for that business that makes deliveries and stuff like that,
Right.
then that would probably be, a easier target, because you
Oh,
need
yeah.
fewer of them than you would various places that require, that have an influx of crew members.
Right.
So.
For example, like most industry, full stop, if the
Mhm.
drivers just say, I'm not working, it's over. It
Yeah,
is a wrap. Like,
it's over.
like my job, I'm pretty sure like Starbucks probably work the same way, McDonald's and all the other places work the same way. If the delivery guys just say, we're not coming to work today and we don't like the pay and so forth and so on, it's just over. Like, we just can't do
Yeah.
business. We might be fine for like maybe day one, maybe day two. I'll give you an example. The other day we didn't have popcorn. We're in a movie theater. We didn't have popcorn. And that's just because of the delivery guys. It wasn't the fact that they just walking out. It was just the fact that they couldn't make deliveries fast enough because, again, we don't have enough drivers. We just
Mhm.
don't, because, a lot of people, my job, and I'm pretty sure like most places in New York, you got to be vaccinated. They're not hiring enough people. So if you
Mhm.
don't have enough drivers, because you can't afford to hire, you can't hire them because the mandate says you can't hire a worker who's haven't been vaccinated. So we don't have enough drivers. We don't have enough staff in general because of COVID too, because you can't hire people. They don't want to be vaccinated. So that's really the issue. And so you do have a little bit of power there. If you have a job that doesn't have enough staff, and you know that, you might get some of the drivers to get involved too. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Especially those truck drivers.
yeah. And I bring this up, and JB and I were bringing this up too, because at the end of the day, we're talking about, this is a strategy, another strategy to get Medicare for all. There's
Mhm.
another strategy to get $15 living wage. There's another strategy to get all the other social safety nets that we're not getting, that we're screaming about. And then the establishment says you don't deserve to have it.
Yeah.
Too
And,
bad.
and one thing to note is, if you stop the supplies from coming in, I don't care how many scabs you can bring in to cross that picket line. If they don't have the resources to produce, then ain't nothing getting done. So guess what? Like, for
Right.
instance, I don't care how many carpenters you got. If they ain't got the wood to put shit together, then ain't nothing getting put together.
Right.
So it doesn't really require a whole lot. But just like Shareef said, this is also a method of getting our health care. This is a method of getting our living wage. This is a method of getting many other different things that we want. And so this is one of the reasons why shit, I'm glad you here. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. Uh
Oh,
yeah. I didn't
my
want to take
God.
too much more of your time. I know you said about an hour,
Oh,
but
dude, we've been having fun, dude. I'm happy to be here. Like I said, I'm happy to be community. Like I said, people reach out to me on Twitter. Like I said, 2022 is not a game. We need Tricky
it's
on
not.
in a serious way. And I just, like I said, my next two actions, I'm punching up at politicians. This
Yeah.
is playtime's over.
Hmm.
Kid gloves got to come off. People are
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
We need serious, deep dive conversations with our elected officials. If we're
Mhm.
not doing it, at the end of the day, yeah, we only have ourselves to blame why we don't have Medicare for all and why we don't have these other safety nets. Like, even if your Medicare for all is not your um, go to, let's say you have issues on climate change, you have issues with any other issue. Keep in mind, they
Mhm.
work for you. It's
Mhm.
not a privilege if they meet with you. It's not a privilege. So you have a right to call someone up and say, hey, what's going on with climate change? Hey, what's going on with this? Hey, what's going on with that? Hey, what's going on with that? You
Mhm.
have that right in your community to go and ask them, so what happened with Fight for 15? Why is this not happening? I work for a living and I'm making $10 an hour. Why is that? You have a
Mhm.
right to say that, right? And if they don't know about this, inform them and tell them get involved because we elected you for a reason. So please educate yourself and please fight for these issues that my community wants. You have a right to do that, right?
Yeah.
I want people to stop thinking that these people are so important and that you don't have a right. It's a privilege to meet with them. No, it's a privilege for them to meet with you, right? Because you got them there. Especially if you're someone who believes in electoral solutions, which I don't. But if you
Mhm.
do believe that, your vote is like money. You paid for that. Okay. They're there because of you. So use it.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Quaker said, Fred care.
Oh, nice. Yes. So
Mhm.
yeah, Craig and I were working on this project we've been doing for the past, I think, almost 8 to 9 months. What
Mhm.
I want to do is be in community with so many other comrades in regards to self-funding our own community hospitals, our
Yeah.
own community system for having healthcare. The
Yeah.
problem in this, the problem we mentioned earlier is that this system is only individualistic
Yeah.
in nature, right? It's nothing about. It's all about the self. It's not about the. It's not about the community. And so I want everyone to reach out to me if you have a background in mutual aid, if you have a background in community activism in general, if you have any background in just healthcare activism in general,
Mhm.
doctor, nurse, whatever. I want to be in discussion about how feasible it is to start having and building a community hospital in our community. Um, for just a simple example, Quaker and I was talking about in Boston. There was a small community hospital. It was providing just very limited services, and it grew into an actual hospital that was not just serving a small community further northern Boston, but it started to be a larger operation. So it grew from being a community hospital to an actual, I guess, where you will call it like a standardized hospital, where it actually offered more services. And you do see certain things like this, where when I mentioned like earlier, with it's like a Cessna ride, where there's like smaller community for lack of a better word, community care ride sharing, where
Mhm.
people can actually not have to spend so much money on getting an ambulance if they need care or they need to travel for the actual hospital itself. And
Yeah.
so my idea is to figure out a system where we can self-fund our own inequity that's actually happening in our community.
Mhm.
I wanted to create I have a tier system that I have in mind.
Mhm.
The first tier system would be, number one, is that we have the community hospital. We start small. We figure out like what can we actually feasibly do based on the comrades we have, the doctors that we actually have, the health physicians that we actually have. That's start number one. Number two, we figure out exactly how affordable can the community actually, how much money the community can actually afford to actually build into the structure. Do we
Mhm.
need outside help in the community? Can we actually do it ourselves? So it is not a perfect system because we are talking about putting our own money into this service, and we're calling it Fred Care because the idea of Fred Hampton bringing this idea of building our own. So I wanted to kind of have that same spirit of the Black Panthers
Mhm.
in this model. So we
Mhm.
start with something small like a community hospital. The
Yeah.
second tier would be something as simple as how much money can we afford to put into the hospital so there is some bit of income in there. So I do apologize for our comrades who maybe cannot afford that. And the last one is being worker owned and community owned. So when I say community hospital and I say a community center, I don't mean something as like, okay, we have a community place there and it services our local community. I'm actually talking about something that it is owned by members who live there. So they actually have a stake in that hospital. They actually have a stake in the actual worker and the actual doctor live there. They actually have a say. So, for example, if there are meetings and there are discussions about care in the community, you have the right to go in there and talk to them about that. Kind of like how supposedly our democratic system is supposed to work, where that if you walk into your congressperson office, they should be able to meet with you whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. So my idea is as simple as that: is have a community center or community hospital rather, where that you own part of that hospital, the workers also own part of that hospital. You buy into the hospital, you actually pay into that, and you get care based off whatever service that actual hospital and or the community can actually provide. It can be as simple as, let's say the doctors in that community can only do specialized service on foot care, whatever it is, right? So you're paying into that. So if you do need help, you know you can go there because you already paid for that. And it's simple. And to the idea also to building it up so that you get more people to invest in so we can provide more services. Because you don't want to over promise and under deliver. You want
Mm-hmm.
to start small and grow it. And so I
Mm-hmm.
do want to be in community with folks, with some radical doctors, some radical nurses, because they are out there, but they're a little scattered. Because I don't know too many converts in New York
Mm-hmm.
who kind of have that kind of thinking like that. But I do want to see where state or what community in the United States I can probably like put a pin in and say, okay, I can land here and
Mm-hmm.
start talking to folks there and building that instead of us constantly punching up, which is something I don't want to stop doing. But something we can do now is look inwardly and see how can we seriously invest in our own community, invest in our own healthcare, and then maybe we can jump off health insurance, full stop,
Mm-hmm.
because the hospital that we live close by, we're paying into, we own part of it, we
Mm-hmm.
invest in it. We know our doctor. We have meetings about different things that goes on in the hospital because you don't now. If you go to your local hospital, your doctor doesn't tell you about the inner workings of that hospital. You just don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of envisioning that we can actually start thinking about doing. And again, it
Mm-hmm.
goes back to where we are in our country, strategizing, reaching out to other comrades because we do see there are other models out there that's like this. This is not
Mm-hmm.
when I thought about this when I first started talking to Quaker about it, this is not something that's new or something that's like um something I just thought of. There are other communities outside of the United States that's already doing this. There are comrades that are building a structure where to help other comrades in their community. And so we can do the exact same thing. I think here we have such a misnomer about the fact that what things are so expensive. That is true. Things are expensive, but it's
Mm-hmm.
all about networking people and what resources that you actually have. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can probably lower those costs. You might be able to get some things to be less expensive. I mean, we already know that they price gouge everything in this country.
Yeah.
So things that we think might be really expensive, is it really, or is it because they just want it to be that expensive?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that expensive. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know that. Those are things that we kind of have to have a discussion about.
Yeah. We shouldn't be paying $10 for Band-Aid.
Right, right,
Yeah. So
right.
that's true. So hey man, I appreciate you being on today.
Oh,
And
dude, yes,
yeah, yeah.
it was awesome.
You're just a wealth of knowledge, and you're just real about it, and that's one of the reasons why I appreciate having you on.
Oh, James, so it's always a pleasure. I love the work you guys do at RBN.
Thank you.
I'm always going to be in community with you guys. We need again, like I said, I'm going to beat this dead horse because this horse definitely needs to keep beating. We have to constantly stay in community with each other. It's the only way we don't win. It
Yep.
it need the enemy. I always say the enemy never sleeps, so we shouldn't either.
Look, keep beating that dead horse because that meat needs to be tenderized, brother. Go ahead, beat the dead horse. Come on, do it. Because guess what? The dead horse will not be. It will continue to need to be beaten until there's not one person that dies without health care in this country.
Damn right.
Because
Damn
the
right.
thing is that one person that dies is one too many.
Right. Right.
One person that has to suffer from not having healthcare is one person too many.
Right.
So
Mm,
definitely,
mm,
definitely.
mm. Thank you, James. As always, it's a pleasure, dude.
Hmm.
I really love
Yeah,
being on.
yeah.
Mm.
By the way, also, make sure to follow him on Twitter. I am
Yes.
4M4A. You
Yep.
know, make sure to give him a follow.
Yeah.
And also the schedule for Senator Sanders. I'm putting that in the chat right now,
Please do.
and I'll put that in the description as well once we're done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please reach out to Bernie. Ask Bernie what's up.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Right.
So man,
Mm. That's
that,
awesome. That's amazing.
yeah, great ideas. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna
Hmm.
keep coming. Like, I have more. I sit home all day and think about what other things I can do to like help with this movement. So I got some stuff in the pipeline. So I will definitely be back talking about
Oh, you better come back.
that.
If you don't come back, I'm not speaking to you no more.
Oh, I was.
Love you, brother.
Let me see, man.
All right.
Oh man. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Yeah.
See you later.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Well, now y'all see why I like having him on. That was awesome. Also, I know he's about to have a meeting in a few minutes. I think Josana was trying to pull him away. Josana, she's also, deep into activism. My homie, my Josana's my spirit animal. Well, not spirit animal, but spirit person. Whatever. She has awesome hair. That's all I got to say. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to also um talk about and bring something up that is in a totally different direction for the JB show today. Um, and this is something that I discovered a few days ago, and let me see, let me find it. And I want to get you guys. I want to get your views on this. I I mentioned this towards the end of the roundtable on Thursday, and I think this is this is this shows that the left, as well as many other civil rights groups, are actually under attack in this nation. I'm gonna share my screen really quick. Um, Let me see. So, CAIR, CAIR, is the Council on American Islamic Relations. And it says an Islamophobic group was working with the Israeli government and spied on Muslims for over a decade. This is huge because we literally have a foreign government that is inserting moles to spy on civil rights groups within the United States. Let me do this here. Um, Make sure that I got my timestamps so that I can breeze through this very efficiently and quickly. I got it here. Okay. And so I'm going to start it right now.
Blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, his family, and all of God's prophets and messengers. With that, let's begin. We are here today to follow up on some information we released to the public a month ago. It was 1 month ago that CARE announced that the director of our Ohio chapter, Roman Iqbal, had been terminated after we learned that he was acting as a spy for an anti-Muslim hate group, passing confidential information about CARE's strategic planning, recorded conversations, and other materials to the so-called investigative project on terrorism for at least 10 years. Now, when we made that announcement, we also noted that we had gathered other information, that we knew that this hate group was targeting the broader Muslim community. We knew that this hate group was in touch with a foreign government, Israeli intelligence officials, providing them with assistance and receiving assistance. Now, since we made those announcements, it is important to note that Stephen Emerson, the founder of IPT, has not denied any of the allegations against him because every single one of them is true. Neither is Mr. Iqbal. In fact, more people have come forward to confirm what we've said and confirm the evidence that we have. And that's what brings us here today. Over the past month, we have continued to investigate this. We have continued to go on offense against this hate group and its allies, and we are now ready to share the latest batch of information that our investigation has uncovered. Some of this you've seen online early today. We're going to walk through it today in detail, God willing. Before we do that, though, I want to invite on our National Executive Director, Nihad Awad, to set the stage for us to discuss the broader issue of surveillance and spying on the Muslim community, how this is really nothing new, and how the community has overcome this struggle in the past. Let's bring on Nihad right now.
So the broader, you know, uh, the broader scope of this is the fact that this has been going on for a while, and I wanted to make a point. If this is happening with a group, an organization, with the help of a foreign government to spy on Muslim civil rights groups, what makes you think that that's not happening in other civil rights groups or leftist organizations? Also, what makes you think that it's not being blind eyes not being turned by the United States government? Nick always talks about um, the infiltration into leftist groups. We see how people try to sabotage different groups. Uh, a lot of times we saw moles and infiltrators, even by government entities, even during the Black Panther Party. We've seen people basically act as infiltrators or sabotagers, even within the March for Medicare for All. And so it's like, if you see something happening within a group that seems kind of not very leftist, do not chalk it up to that group. Just toss them all out because that group is, they're just, something happened is not very leftist of them, or it seems like they have something bad going on. Think about other elements within our nation that are infiltrating and trying to sabotage it. Think about what happened with the March for Medicare for All. The March for Medicare for All was a beginning of a movement that could have had a huge amount of backing from many different people who said they supported Medicare for All. And what happened? Somebody went in, made a graphic of a known white supremacist for the advertisement for the march, and then made people think that that person was invited when they never were in the first place. And then it caused this huge influx of people, making it seem like they invited a white supremacist when that wasn't the case at all. And then, even when the issue was fixed, they kept on harping on an inaccurate falsehood and saying that that person was invited. Even after the issue was fixed, they kept on saying, well, they invited this person when it was never true. That was sabotage. Point blank, period. And the thing is that I want you all to be as vigilant as you possibly can, because guess what? If you think it's bad now, it's going to happen even worse in the future. It's happening to major civil rights groups like CARE. What makes you think it's not happening to those of us who, hell, look, we did the oh my God, for some reason I'm forgetting words in my head. Don't do dialysis, kids. No, I'm just kidding. Do dialysis if you need it. The General Strike Summit. As soon as we were doing the summit, a bunch of people were downplaying it and talking bad about it and saying, well, you guys don't have this person. You guys don't have that person. You guys need, and we were getting attacked left and right over it, including some very famous people who consider themselves to be on the left. And guess what? All the people that they were complaining that we didn't have, we had. All the ideas that they thought about we wouldn't talk about, we talked about. And guess what? It was a success. General Strike Summit went barely without a hiccup. And yet, the funny thing is we don't really see them talking shit about it anymore, right? So just realize that if you're in a organization or a group or a certain type of movement, expect these things to happen. And expect for people to believe the brainwashing, believe the propaganda, believe the dissent. Or if something actually does happen, recognize that there may just be people who have ulterior motives that aren't really down for the struggle. Because guess what? They're out there and they're just waiting. They're licking their chops to destroy whatever that the left has in order to make things better for people in this country. Let me go to a different part. Let me go to this portion. Let me see. Right here. I'm going to go a few seconds before just so that we'll have this ready. Okay.
By IPT, I can say no. The person who is the whistleblower is not currently employed by IPT. Next question. Has CARE reached out to the Justice Department, the Treasury Department, or the FBI? What is the response to them? So CARE has reached out to federal law enforcement, to the FBI in particular. Those conversations are ongoing. There is more I could say about that, but I think we will keep that private for now for obvious reasons. But we have reached out to federal law enforcement, and we plan to continue those conversations. I will just say it is critical that federal law enforcement investigate this matter. And also, if federal law enforcement was in any way working with Stephen Emerson, that needs to be admitted as well. And we will also be looking into whether or not there is any evidence that IPT was collaborating with law enforcement officials. Brother Nihad, anything you want to add on that point of why it's so important for law enforcement to take this seriously?
Well, definitely. I mean, law enforcement, especially the FBI, has the responsibility to protect Americans of all backgrounds against a threat of terrorism or violence or exploitation. And you have an organization that has, with documents, with evidence, and we shared this evidence with the media in a previous press conference, and they're available. We can make them available. We contacted the law enforcement. Unfortunately, I have to say that they have not been responsive as I would expect them to be. It's very disappointing. We thought that the government, once they hear about this, that they will be proactive, that they will contact us, that they say, yeah, we hear this. How can we help? How can we help CARE and the American Muslim community to be assured that their privacy is protected, that their First Amendment is protected, that anyone who represents or works on behalf or in service of any foreign power, they will be investigated and held accountable. Unfortunately, we haven't heard that. And that's why, yes, I echo my colleague's point, Edward, that we are in conversation, but we're not going anywhere. And that's very, very disappointing. Is it because we're Muslim? Do they have issues with this? Are they working with Stephen Emerson and his group? If they did, we would like them to admit. Otherwise, we have to go to Congress. We need to investigate this. We cannot allow nepotism and corruption in the investigative project anymore to continue. We were lucky to uncover this plot, but also we need the help of the federal authorities to assure the public that they will not allow this to happen, and also to do more efforts to prevent it from happening in the future. Right now, we have not seen many signs, unfortunately.
Thank you, Nihad, for sharing that. Again, I wanted to defer to Nihad to share whether or not we were going to, so thank you, Nihad, for sharing those important.
So, yeah, need I say more? And also, a lot of the people, unfortunately, who ends up infiltrating, a lot of people don't really know how damaging what they're doing is, what they're doing. And a lot of times they are, faced with the promise of money to help sustain them because they're in financially dire situations. And so they're under the impression that they're helping out the government somehow to make things better. And yet they're actually screwing the American people over. Let me go to this other timestamp. I think I'll go here. I think that's where it's at. Let me see. All right.
$1 million at least. And you can see that report online. We can put it in the chat for you as well. One of those hate groups was IPT. We're going to show you now tax documents showing which charitable foundations have been giving money to this organization that was paying spies to target the Muslim community. One of them was Fidelity Charitable Gift Fund, a donor advised fund. In 2017, according to its tax return, it gave $67,000 to IPT. You can see it.
Okay, that's not the part that I wanted to go to, but that's also really interesting. I also put the link in the chat for you all so that you guys can watch this video. The part where he discusses all the facts is about 30 minutes, and then the rest of the news conference is the last 30 minutes. So if you guys want to see that, but that's not exactly the part that I wanted. I think it's at this timestamp. Let me see. I should have. Okay. This has to be it. Okay.
Happens to another Muslim organization again. Last thing I would note, in terms of next steps, we are considering all of our legal options against not only IPT, Roman Iqbal, but other people who have enabled this behavior. Number two, the Muslim community is communicating and working together to prepare, as Brother Nihad said, to call for the authorities to take appropriate action to address this issue. Were crimes committed here? That is what law enforcement should find out. You know, when you are working with a foreign government to spy on American Muslims, when you are recording people without permission across the country, you are in very legally dangerous territory. And so we are working with the Muslim community, and you should be getting some new announcements about things on that front soon, God willing.
And let me see, 20, let me see.
Clear whether or not these congressmen that he was working with knew that Emerson was spying on the community. We do have some evidence that Mr. Emerson was providing information to members of Congress who were hostile to Muslims, but it's still unclear whether or not those members knew where this information was coming from. We are continuing to investigate that point.
Yeah. Let's go to this one. And here.
Muslim community around the country, it really caused a clear spike in hate speech and hate crimes against American Muslims. Now, during this controversy, the American Muslim leadership decided to get together to hold a private strategy call to discuss how they would address this conflict. And when they hosted that call, when they got together, IPT had a paid spy on that private confidential phone call who recorded that conversation and then gave it to IPT. That person was obviously Mr. Tariq Nelson. I'm showing you here the first page of a transcript that is actually about 60 pages or so of this conversation that Muslim leaders had about how to address this controversy. Next thing that we want to discuss is the extent to which Emerson was collaborating with other individuals. That is the extent to which other individuals knew what he was doing. What Tariq Nelson told us very explicitly is that IPT was not working alone. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. That IPT was not working alone. At one point, IPT, according to Mr. Nelson, arranged for him to meet with an unidentified law enforcement official in the state of New York. Now, this alleged law enforcement official would not say his name or who he worked with when he met with Mr. Nelson, but he frisked Mr. Nelson, interviewed him, and asked him questions, and then nothing came of that. Mr. Nelson believes that the man concluded that Tariq Nelson was not a true believer in the anti-Muslim cause, and therefore was not willing to carry on with him. Another example, Mr. Nelson mentions that IPT connected him with Daniel Pipes. Now, Daniel Pipes is an anti-Muslim bigot, a racist, who founded the Middle East Forum, an anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian hate group. Mr. Pipes called Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Pipes, according to Mr. Nelson, asked him to start speaking out against Muslims, the mainstream Muslim community, which is what some other extremist Muslims have done in coordination with hate groups. Tariq Nelson refused to do that, and therefore the Middle East Forum did not work with him, according to what Tariq Nelson told us. Another example, the IPT whistleblower informed us that IPT was in communication working with members of Congress, including Congressman Pete Hoekstra of Michigan. It is still unclear whether or not these congressmen that he was working with knew that Emerson was spying on the community.
Okay, so there's just a few facts that were given out during there's a few facts that were given out during this news conference, and just be wary about, you know, when you see people that seem like things aren't going the more lefty route in certain instances, because it could be infiltration. So just be cognizant of that. But also don't just be flippant and just toss away the entire group of people that are working on something like, for instance, healthcare or defunding the police or some anti-war movement, you know, just because there is something that comes up that gives you pause, recognize that it might just be an infiltrator or somebody that's trying to sabotage the movement. So just be wary of that. Wow, really? Upstairs neighbor is a national leader in the anti-Muslim movement, has been covering the nation. He also hates socialists. He scares my Muslim neighbors and me. I'm so sorry. Wow. Nobody should have to live like that. Not at all. Jonathan says complaining about current oppressors infiltrating older oppressors is not exactly leftist nor productive. What do you mean? I'm not exactly catching to what you mean by that, virtual Jonathan. Um, so yeah, there's a lot that is going on, and it sucks because you get some people who mean well and think that they have a financial opportunity, and next thing you know, they end up becoming the same people that end up sabotaging, and they really don't realize, or they finally realize, and it's too late, or it feels like it's too late. So it's good to yeah, provide if you can mutual aid to people so they don't get to a point where they feel the desperation. And I think this is one of the reasons why mutual aid is so important, because if you can't house yourself or feed yourself or clothe yourself, you get to a desperate place, and that desperate place makes you do things that might be uncharacteristic of you. So helping out your neighbors is a deeply important aspect of making sure that they don't drift away from their solidarity, because sometimes, you know, hunger or thirst can push people in directions that they just don't want to go. We see it happen all the time. So, so, um, other side, Steve says, all of us would do just about anything to survive. That's why we got to take care of each other. Communities used to look out for each other during strikes, food shortages, etc. Yeah, exactly. And I think this is one of the reasons why it was great to have Shareef on earlier today, because we were talking about that as well. Is that if you're not, if you're trying to do what you can for the community, but you just don't have that support, it's really hard to get out there and be an activist if, you don't really have support from the community to have their backing. And so this is why, one of the reasons why I talk about this on this show is because a lot of times people, it feels like they just go out into the wilderness on their own, and it's like, where is everybody? And they're basically kind of like the warriors out there, and it's like, well, you know how much helpful would it be if we were to be behind them and provide some of that mutual aid in different ways for them so that they can continue to keep going. And then once in a while, if we can, we can stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Or if we can't stand shoulder to shoulder with them, then make sure they have, you know, their sneakers aren't worn, or make sure they have water to drink, or Make sure they have food to eat. Make sure they have a bed to sleep on if we can provide that. Because a lot of times, you have different people that are valuable for different parts of a movement or a revolution. Let's see. Lania Cannon says, "What is productive is knowing your enemy and building a parallel society to combat them. The only win is when we give in to the CBDC and biodigital surveillance harvesting." I have no idea what CBDC is. Please forgive me for that. I'm not exactly sure, but thank you for the comment. Um, let's go back to the chat. Yeah, and people realize that capitalism discourages community. Um, and one of the ways that it does that is it puts this individualistic mindset so that you feel like you're an island all onto yourself, and so that you don't need anybody. And so it tries to force everybody to do that. So therefore, community crumbles. But then if you don't have community, then it makes it a lot harder to survive. And so then you're more apt to exploit people because therefore you don't see their humanity as much. So it becomes easier to stiff people when it comes to pay. It becomes easier to provide them with no health care. It becomes easier to throw them in a prison and put them in a slave type of apparatus where they make very little and they have to work and produce so much for you. It becomes just easier. You become desensitized to their humanity. That's what capitalism does. And we're seeing the effects of that today in our society. Fred October says hunger plus uncertainty is one hell of a drug. Don't I know it? And people do drastic things. And unfortunately, this is why they're able to get scabs to come across the picket line and go into work. Because they're like, well, I'm hungry. I have nothing to eat. So I'm sorry. I know you guys are fighting for our rights, but I have nothing to eat at home. Who's going to feed me? And I'm not making excuses for them, but I'm saying this is why mutual aid is so important so that it prevents people from crossing picket lines. It prevents people from going against the movement to actually better our lives. Because a lot of times, what these capitalist oppressors will do is that they will dangle that resource that you need in front of your face in order to turn against your comrades. It's true. It's an effective tool. Skeptical Mantis says we should study why the Bolsheviks were able to survive police infiltration. Check out the oh gosh, I'm terrible with these names. Malinovsky case. He got into the central committee of the party. Virtual Jonathan says, my point is that prior to capitalism and feudalism, the masses were crushed by the yoke of religion. Hmm. So, from what I think you're gathering, is that are you saying that there's always going to be some system that is going to be crushing the masses uh, for some gain at some point in time. I'm trying to get to that central point. Is that, are you saying that there's always going to be something oppressive that's going to continue no matter what we do? Or are you saying that there uh, I I'm just trying to figure out exactly what you're saying there. I apologize if I'm kind of missing the mark of your point. Quaker Quaker says, I want to organize a N95 mass distribution to our known anarchist comrades who are in our circle on Twitter, thinking $10 coupons to share to buy six. I think that would be a great idea. If I definitely would like some N95 masks as a dialysis patient. Part of me is thinking about like taking one with me to go to dialysis each day so that I won't have to wear the regular medical mask that they give me, because even those have their limitations. N95 masks are more safer than the regular masks that they give us there. Oh wait, somebody answered the question. Central bank digital currency. I still don't know what that is. Are you talking about cryptocurrency? Is that what you're referring to? Um, Thank you so much, Trish, for the super sticker. Appreciate it very much. We should be using washable, reusable masks rather than contributing to more waste. Here's the thing, though. Unfortunately, the washable, reusable masks, which typically are cloth masks, aren't as effective as ones like N95 masks and a lot of the medical grade masks. Unfortunately, they do not prevent a lot of the us from absorbing a lot of the droplets that actually come through masks. So therefore, unfortunately, we should be using the medical grade ones. Now, if they can be made from recyclable material, that also would be nice. But unfortunately, because of the potency of the virus, um, the reusable, washable masks, um, unless you know of one that is just as effective as these medical grade ones, as well as N95 that are washable, reusable, I think that's what we're stuck with. Um, and if you could just, put those masks in, your recycle bin, then I guess you can do it that way. But yeah, Aspen Fallen says cloth masks prevent spread but don't protect the wearer. See, thing is that I'm also not only trying to prevent the spread, but I'm also trying to protect myself as somebody that's immunocompromised, and I do not want to catch this. Um, Thankfully, I haven't yet after 2 years of it going on, but I am immunocompromised. And just letting you guys know, I took the vax, I took the jab, and the jag knocked me on my ass, and just that knocked me on my ass. So imagine what the actual virus will do to me. Yeah, you guys may not ever see another JB show anymore if I ever get it. So I gotta be extremely careful. People like me. Where Pilgrim says reusing masks kind of break down their effectiveness over time as well. Hopefully the technology can improve over time though. That's actually something I think I hope to see. And you know what's funny? I think the technology is actually out there, but they don't want the technology to be revealed. Because if it was, then that means that they will make less profit. See, when I said earlier about nationalizing, also meant the manufacturers too. So the people who make the masks, that would be nationalized as well. So therefore, it would be more cost effective to make something that's as effective as an N95, but then you can wash and reuse over time. Of course, it wouldn't make that much profit because you can reuse it and wash it. But the point is that's something that should not be made for profit at all. It's there to protect people, and it should be made, without having regard for profit. And also, it helps the environment because we don't have to produce as much. That's what I think. Yeah. Absolutely, Aspen Fallen, plant obsolescence. This is something that a lot of people know, but they really don't. They just deal with it, right? Something breaks down. Oh, I got to get it fixed. You know, aren't you tired of that? Aren't you just tired of, like, you get something, you use it for a couple years, and then it just breaks down, and then and you took care of it as much as you possibly could, but then it just doesn't work anymore. And so they force you to have to buy a brand new one. Or they'll phase things out for you to have to use something newer, but it's like, why? Like, what was the purpose of it? Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I do that. I'm done with it. It's like, ugh. But yeah. Um Let me check. Oh, by the way, I want to thank James Starks for the tips on Rockfin. James Stark says, check out the modalities of Operation COINTELPRO files online today. Tomorrow is not a certainty. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, COINTELPRO, they are known for doing a lot of shit. Just ask Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because they actually went up against him, and they even wrote a letter to him trying to urge him to commit suicide. Uh, and it was ridiculous because the thing is uh, they had an agenda once he started going after the economic inequities that people were suffering in his time in the 60s. And so uh, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still trying to do the same things today. In fact, doing more oppressive, coercive tactics, especially towards more prominent activists. And so, we have to remain as vigilant as we possibly can because uh, it's really just a fight of the power versus the powerless, or the perceived powerless. Because really, we actually do have power. That's why they consider us a threat. If they didn't consider us a threat, then things like COINTELPRO and the CIA would never exist. But the thing is that they do exist because we actually do have power. The police come after us because they realize that we do have power. There is power in numbers. There is power in the people who actually want to provide things and not keep uh, a system that benefits just a few. And that few know that there's just a few of them. Because they know there's just a few of them, then they have to protect themselves as much as they possibly can, protect their capital as much as they possibly can. Because if they're not, if they don't protect it, then they know that we can take it back. Because really, ultimately, it's ours. But what do I know? I'm just a silly socialist, right? Yeah. Anyway, so it is after 3 o'clock, and I have to go soon. Oh, Virtual Jonathan, part of his cost effectiveness It just may not be feasible environmentally or otherwise to use the most effective material. It isn't always deliberately malicious. I understand. It's just, I think we have to do it partially on a case by case basis. If you're very healthy, you get checkups often, you know you're very healthy, and you're doing pretty good, you may be able to get away with a cloth mask. You may be able to get away with it. So you can do your part in that way. I can't myself because I'm immunocompromised and I suffer from a chronic illness. But I do appreciate when people try to do it for an environmentally friendly reason. So I do applaud when people do it that way. And so I definitely understand what you mean, Jonathan. And I partially concede to your point as well. So I think that's I think you make some really good points, and I appreciate your comment too. So, but yeah, um, if anybody doesn't have anything else, I need to go because let me be real with y'all for a second. This chair is not comfortable. Y'all want to see what I sit on? Okay, let me show you. I sit on this. Okay, my ass is hurting. I gotta get going because I I don't have a computer chair to sit in to be all comfortable and sit. For those, like, how you get some Twitch streamers, they'll be streaming for like 3-4 hours. I'm like, no, I can't do that. No, this thing is not made for me, and I'm fluffy. Look at me, y'all. I'm fluffy, so I cannot be sitting in this chair for these long ass streams. Shit, I'm not the I'm not the total paragon of perfection that you see before you right now. It takes a lot just to get this ready. Oh, shit. But anyways, uh, look, look. Okay, Aspen Fallen. Look, I already have a GoFundMe just for like medical expenses. Like, I can't do another. It's like, look, I'm already trying to save up money for a new camera on my coffee, and that's proven to be a little bit more difficult than it typically is because I also have other bills that come up, and so then the other bills take away from the camera fund, and so it is what it is. So for right now, I'm just gonna have to do what I can. Maybe I can get a oh, what's it called? A memory foam pillow for my tush. We'll see how that happens. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why I'm also so quick to leave because I'm just like, my ass is like, JV, stop it, get up, you gotta go, bro, in the stream, cut it out now. And I'm just like, dude, I'm sorry, I love the people I'm talking to. If you go numb, oh well. I'm so stupid, y'all. My colleagues from RBN are probably watching me right now. They're probably like, what in the hell? Why in the world is he still part of this group? He is ridiculous right now. Yeah. But yeah, so just to let you guys know, if you guys want to contribute something, I put the links to Venmo, PayPal, Cash App in the description as well if you guys want to do something like that. If not, just share it or whatever you guys want to do. But I just want to, let you guys know that I will be live on my channel on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My guest will be, oh my goodness, Case Study QB will be my guest on my channel on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm excited for that. Case is a resource. That brother just, I got I gotta give him a few applause, man. I gotta hand him his flowers because I can't wait to have him on. And then Thursday is the roundtable. And in fact, on this Thursday on the roundtable, it is also, by coincidence, going to be the anniversary of Joe Biden's inauguration. So he'll be exactly 1 year in office that Thursday. So that's going to be an interesting conversation to have. And is it going to be just us 2 hours clowning on Biden? Yeah. It's just gonna be 2 hours of us clowning on Biden because he ain't do shit. But yeah, so come on in, watch the show and laugh with us. Look, you gotta allowed to keep yourself from crying on this, in this world, especially in this country, especially within capitalism, because capitalism just want to keep you miserable and just, say, fuck it. So just do that. And thank you, Noli D. I appreciate that suggestion. I think I'm gonna have to take you up on that suggestion because, well, y'all are lovely. I love y'all. Anyways, so I am way over time. Um, be sure to if you guys haven't liked this, please give it a like. Also, please click the notification bell. Even though sometimes YouTube don't want to notify nobody whenever we go live, even though it supposedly does it, but yeah, the algorithm don't like us. But look, make sure to click that notification bell. Also, please make sure to go and give Shareef a follow if you're not following him on Twitter. And I don't think there's anything left. So I love all y'all. Peace, chicken grease. I don't know. JB, end the stream, brother. Stream it. End it now. Love y'all. Mwah. Forehead kisses.